Hello from what is an absolutely sodden and pretty sorry Kenilworth Road for Hull City fans. Beaten again for the 7th time this season, the 3rd straight defeat for the Tigers, losing 1-0 against Luton Town, who leapfrog City out of the drop zone, and City are now in the drop zone, back in there for the 2nd time this season after this 1-0 defeat. And in truth, it's a game they should never have lost. Luton created very little in the game. City created more. They hit the post. They had a lot of pressure in and around the penalty area, and it's this is one of those really bizarre games where you've come away and they've been beaten. Everybody's unhappy. The manager was booed again by the away fans at full time, which I completely understand. But actually, if you look at the game as a whole, City were okay. They dominated the game. At one point, they'd had 74% of the ball, but they had no shot on target. And that, I think, the frustrating thing was that the first shot on target didn't come until the 75th minute, and that was Casey Palmer, who came off the bench a few seconds before and actually made a real positive impact. But they've dominated the game. It's taken until the 75th minute to have a shot on target, and they've lost. And that is, I said this a couple of weeks ago, that I felt that City were kind of careering into a relegation battle, because all the hallmarks of them is a team, that's going to struggle. They play well in parts, yes they do. I know there's now a big narrative around the manager, but I think you have to be fair and you have to be objective and say that in parts of games they do play well, and in parts of today's game they played well. They were dominant. They knocked it around, but again they didn't create enough. And when that chance came, they should have won this game 2-1. I don't think anybody could argue with that. João Pedro had a glorious chance in the first half. Louis Coyle's cross over the top, and Pedro unmarked, six yards out. He's kind of diving on the floor, heads it wide of the left-hand post. That has to go in. It just has to go in. At any level of football, that has to go in. And then they concede the goal. That was just seconds after they conceded the goal. We'll come to that in just a minute. And then in the second half, they were slow to get going at the start of the second half, but they gradually worked their way into it. Luton didn't really carry a massive threat, if I'm brutally honest, but they found a way to win and they got through. The best chance of the second half came when Regan Slater, I thought was very good today, bombed down the right-hand side, first time cross, took out the defender, and João Pedro ran onto it and sort of poked it towards goal, but it came back off the upright and Kamara couldn't finish it. But again, I think he's got to score. I think, for a striker, that is your food and drink. And I just think he has to... Those two chances are, in a game of few clear-cut chances, I mean, both teams only hit the target twice, and both of them came for City from Casey Palmer, both in the final few minutes. When you don't create a huge amount of chances and you are struggling, you're not getting 7-8 shots on goal every game. You're on target every game. You're not feeding off scraps is probably too strong, but perhaps it's not, maybe. But they are two really good chances. I just think that Pedro should score both of them. Chris Bedia came off the bench. He had a bit more time this week than he did the few seconds he got against West Brom before the international break. He had a really good chance from Ryan Longman's cross, probably should have hit the target. But yeah, they look a team. Chris, nobody's calling it a great performance. Absolutely not. I'm certainly not saying it's a great performance. Nowhere near a great performance. What at all? I would describe City's win at Southampton last season as a great performance. That's my yardstick, if I'm honest. That first half at Southampton was great. That is my benchmark of what a great Hull City performance is in the last couple of seasons. This was not anything like that. What this was an okay performance. It had plenty to be optimistic about, but again, it had plenty to be not optimistic about, because again, they've not kept a clean sheet. That's now 15 games where they've not kept a clean sheet. They've kept one, and they've lost. Luton created absolutely nothing. I've got to be honest, I expected a lot more from Luton. I know they're lacking in confidence. I know they were pummeled 5-1 at Middlesbrough before the break. I know Rob Edwards has been under a lot of pressure. But with the quality they've got, and I know their best player, Alfie Doughty, was out today, and so too Jordan Clark, but I expected more from them. I expected to come out all guns blazing, because the crowd, before kick-off, the crowd were applauding them off the pitch from their warm-up. You know, they felt a lot of emotion here about the manager and whatnot. I expected them to come out and really give City a stern going over today. It never happened, and you give City credit for that. But ultimately, they fashioned one opportunity from a set. I think they had 10 corners in the game. They've scored from it. Charlie Hughes flicked the header on at the near post. Nobody marked McGuinness. Nobody marked Mark McGuinness, centre half, and he's turned it in the back of the net. That obviously changes the game, because up to that point the crowd had gone fairly quiet. City were in control, as I said before, 74% of the ball, and they. But Luton didn't care, do they? They needed the result. This is the result that whole City needed. They needed just a gritty, back to the wall, find a way to win the game, 1-0 win, and they've done that. That's what City need. They now need to go and get that on Tuesday night against Sheffield Wednesday at the MKM Stadium. But it's what I would say, and look, I've been completely critical of the manager. I still am. I think that I still think that they need a change. I still think that this isn't going to work out. I've said that a million times, but I also have to be fair. And I thought today they put in a decent performance. What I would say, they're just lacking cutting edge. They don't create a huge amount of chances, so when they do, they have to take them. I thought Kamara was the one change back in the team. Had a brilliant chance inside 4 minutes. Got down the left-hand side, and then his cross was cleared behind for a corner. There was another chance second half when he's bombed pretty much the length of the pitch, and he's pulled it across goal. I think Abdus got so much talent, but he looks a player bereft of confidence, and that comes from the manager. That is, you know, he made his debut against Sheffield United and was hauled off at half time. He looks like he needs a manager to help him, to build him up, to give him the confidence. But because when he gets into some wonderful positions, he really does. But you never feel that he's got any conviction. There was one at Derby, in the I think it was in the first half, when he got in down the left hand side, in on goal, and he blazed over the crossbar. And I kind of feel that is symptomatic of Abu at the minute. He's lacking confidence, that when he gets in and around the penalty area. Last year at Portsmouth, he was banging him in from all sides. This season, he's perhaps a bit hesitant in front of goal, or he picks, instead of shooting, he looks to make the pass, make a difficult pass at that. So I think that, but again, I think that comes down to the manager. It was the same similar with Regan, who I thought, as I said before, I thought Regan was really good today. In the first half, he's bombing onto the edge of the penalty area, and he's got Abdus in front of him with his back to goal being marked, and instead of Regan letting fly, because he'd opened up the opportunity, it was this goal here, and he'd opened up the angle, and you're thinking, go on then, have a pop, and instead he plays it into Abdus's feet, back to goal on the edge of the box. Abdus has to then knock it back out to Xavier Simons, who's miles further out, and he smacks it into the back of the stand. And it's like that. Have that conviction, have that courage, Regan, to have a shot goal. Something that Casey Palmer did have when he came on. You know, he got the ball on the left side, cut inside and fizzed it. Relatively straightforward save from Kaminsky, but he made it. And then he had another one where it was going towards goal. It deflected off, I think, the Luton defender. Kaminsky had already committed to the dive, and it ricocheted up off his leg and behind the goal for a corner. And you kind of knew that was that by that point, and that it wasn't going to be City's day. But you know, it's hard to be that critical of that performance today, because they've come away from home, you know, which again against Luton, which was a difficult place to come at the best of times, and they were deserving of something from the game. But ultimately, this cannot continue to be a hard luck story. We cannot keep coming away from games going, oh yeah, but they played well in bits and they deserve more, because that's how teams get relegated. And you can't be naive about it. I've just spoken to Cody Drame, who I thought was decent back at his old club, and he said, look, I was at Birmingham last season and we got relegated, so I know what it feels like to be down at the bottom of the table, and we can't be naive. We can't hide away from the fact of where we are on the table. The manager's not concerned about certainly publicly. He was asked post-match, you know, are you concerned now you're back in the bottom three? He was like, no, we'll get out of it. But that's not good for me, and that shouldn't be good enough. Oh, we'll get out of the bottom three. City should be looking further up the table, and the fact they've won 3 times in 16 games, it tells its own story, doesn't it? And with each passing week, with every game that comes and goes without them winning again, that is That is a problem. David, yeah, that a lot of it is sideways and back. There was a moment in the second half where they got Luton pinned on the edge of their own penalty area. Luton pushed them sort of back to halfway. Instead of turning and going forward, Simons went all the way back to Panda. And it's like you're banging your head against a brick wall. I still maintain that they play a lot of unnecessary football around their own final third, and not enough in the opposition final third. They don't put the opposition under any kind of sustained pressure, probably bar the last few minutes of injury time when they were getting in and around. But by that point, it's back. Luton are hanging on. You're pushing for something, of course, and you're trying to salvage a point. That needs to be coming further enough. Mark, let's be honest. Well, it's not acceptable. Mark says it's not acceptable where we're absolutely, and I challenge anybody to you're third bottom after 16 games, and if something doesn't improve quickly, you're going to be, we've seen this game before, haven't we? We know exactly how this plays out. If you are in that bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5 around Christmas, you've got a problem, and you're in a battle to stay in the division. And right now, after 16 games, they've got 15 points. They can't score, and when they do score, they score 1 goal. We've talked about this before. They've played 16 games, and they've only scored more than 1 goal in 3 of them, and they were the 3 wins that, with every passing week, feel like a lifetime ago. So, unless they start winning football matches, I don't know how you can phrase it any differently, but they are in a fight to stay in this division after 16 games because the third bottom, and there needs to be some realisation. And whether the manager is naive or whether that's the card he's playing in the public, I don't really know. But they are where they are for a reason, because they've not been good enough. Then they can see goals and they don't score them, and you don't have to be. I said this on the podcast the other day, that I often think that people in football, managers and pundits, and a lot of people in football try and overcomplicate it and try and be scientific. In reality, it's really simple. If you don't score goals, but you can see goals, you're gonna lose games, aren't you? It's not rocket science. We don't need to have a degree in football, football whatever, to understand that. And I think, the fans who I thought were tremendous, 1,100 or so here today, long way to come, awful weather, teams not winning games. I thought the fans were absolutely brilliant this afternoon, and they backed their team all the way. They clapped them off at the end. You could see, they could see the effort that the players were putting in. Yeah, they booed off Walter, but I think that was as much because the manager didn't go over and applaud them. He walked straight off. You can see the dugouts behind. There's the dugouts at Kenilworth Road, and you walk basically across to where I am now. The dugouts, the tunnel, but it's right at the far end. He didn't go over to acknowledge the fans. It was almost, he sort of went like that, somewhat sarcastically in many respects. But so they booed him off. They jeered him. They said obviously Walter out and all that sort of stuff. But they did applaud the players, and I thought the fans were. Let's be fair. 2024 has been a nightmare, particularly at home. But it's ending badly. It's really ending badly, and they've turned up again today, and you can't fault them. They were brilliant. And they've got like all of us, we've got a horrible journey back in this weather. So I just think I can understand their frustration. But he, as I say, the line in the public line that he's putting out is he's not too concerned. He thinks it'll turn around, but you can't keep saying it. You've got to start doing, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen now. They've got Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday night. Wednesday, nothing special. They've already been beaten by Wednesday's reserves this season in the Carabao Cup. They can't afford to let that happen again, and we keep talking about it, but they've got to start doing. They've got to start getting results. They've got to do to Wednesday what Luton did here today. Grind out a 1-0 win. Luke, in terms of Adjun, I kind of feel that Adjun's in his head, perhaps, and I can't second guess him, of course, but I kind of feel like he obviously wants Tim to work. Look, Tim is his man. We've said this before. Tim is his man. He's put a lot of stock in Tim. He brought him in for the reasons we know about. But there is coming a point, and I think the point's come before now, that he has to make a decision and he has to accept defeat. And I think if he's worried about what the fan perception of him will be if he sacks him, I don't think that's a concern. I think you've got to make the right decision. And I think, actually, the fans would kind of go, yeah, look, you tried something different. You brought in a manager from abroad, known for playing attacking football. It's just not worked. Now we need somebody that can come in and do what Liam did 2 years ago, make us tight, get the best out, put their arm around these players and get the best out of them. Because I think, there are issues there. There is a lack of quality in certain areas, but that squad is better than third bottom of the Championship after 16 games. So I think it needs somebody to come in and organise them and get them better and get them keeping clean sheets and get them winning games 1-0 or 2-1 or something like that, and just instil some confidence. Because I look around that team and I just don't see confidence. They look bereft. As I said before, Kamara for me looks like a player just needing a cuddle, frankly, and some belief inserting into him. Louise, I don't disagree. I don't think the players are happy. I don't see the players, running around with smiles on their face. You can't fault their effort, and I'll always back the players in that respect. You can't fault their effort or their application. They're trying to do what the manager wants them to do, but João Pedro putting the ball in the net, that comes down to confidence, doesn't it? He scored a wonderful goal against West Bromwich Albion with that header, and based on that goal, you'd have thought the two he's missed today were, food and drink for him, absolute sitters. So, I think, look, ultimately they've got to find a way to make that decision, and whatever that is, whatever that comes. But I don't feel it's going to be anytime soon. They need a result on Tuesday night, don't they? That is, in the Yorkshire derby against Sheffield Wednesday, that is exactly what we need. They've got to find a way of gritting it out and just getting some points from somewhere, because otherwise it's going to be a long winter. And once you're down there, it becomes very, very difficult to get out of it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Just a couple of other points to raise. Marvin Malan was back today, didn't get on the pitch, but was back in the squad after his calf injury. I wouldn't be surprised to see Stephen Alzate back in the squad on Tuesday night. He's recovered. So, that's it from here. And you can see the rain coming down at Kenilworth Road. It is absolutely horrific. So if you've been down here today, well done, because the fans were absolutely brilliant, and they backed their team right to the end. And as I say, deservedly applauded them off. It wasn't a performance where they needed hammering, they needed abusing, or anything like that. They gave the lot, and they just came up short. Steve, I'd be very surprised. Obviously, you may well have seen the interview that we did with Adjun during the international break. I've spoke to him quite a lot recently as well. Since then, he wants it to work, and I don't know. I just don't get the impression that a change is going to come anytime soon. But I'll always throw in that caveat that things can change, things happen, and you just never know. Football's a funny old game, isn't it? So that's it from here at Kenilworth Road. City back in the bottom three, beaten by a 0-0 at Luton Town, who leapfrog the Tigers outside the bottom three and move on to 18 points. City stick. Oh, Luke, let's not mention Bury away. They've smashed Oxford today. So let's focus on Tuesday night. I sound like a player now, or a manager. Let's focus on Tuesday night, and let's hope they can beat Wednesday on Tuesday, and then that becomes Saturday at Borough next week becomes a very different game. I'd agree. Tony Longman did all right. Looked lively. I'd start Casey Palmer. I thought Puerta was poor. It gives the ball, for a player in that part of the pitch, gives the ball away far too much. So I'd probably start Casey Palmer. I probably would. I don't think Abdus is tearing it up, so I'd start Ryan Longman, absolutely. They're probably my two changes: Puerta out and Abdus out, and Longman and Casey Palmer back in the team. I would also, I don't know, I'd try and find a way to get Ryan Giles in the team. I like Cody Dramé. I think he's done really well, but maybe you could put Dramé left side and then Giles further forward. I just feel in a team that doesn't create a huge amount that you might need Ryan Giles in there. I know he didn't have a great game a couple of weeks ago. He was part responsible for one of the goals, but he's a quality player on this day at this level, isn't he? Right, that's it. Robert, last chance for Walter on Tuesday night. We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Peter, I'm trying to read. Longman was reluctant to cross the ball. Yeah, he wants to cut inside and try and get a shot away. He's also, you don't know what tactics they've been given. Are they told to put the ball in the box? Are they told to try and work? A lot of teams are told to to try and work the opportunity, work the opening before just throwing the ball in the box. But I thought Ryan looked bright when he came on. As I say, I really liked a lot of Abu Kamara's performance today. Just lacks that cutting edge, that moment of real quality and that belief, because it's in there. I genuinely believe in Abu. The quality's in there. He just needs that belief. Alan, yeah, I don't believe it's rocket science. I don't, but I sometimes think managers overcomplicate it for their own ego, for their own. You know, there's a lot of talk about philosophies in football, and I think it's just the latest buzzword. I think football's a relatively simple game, and it does get overcomplicated. And I think a lot of what they've been asked to do, I've called it before, unnecessary faffing. And I think a lot of what they're doing is exactly that. There's a lot of it they don't need to be doing. I think they could get it forward, and they did at times try and get it forward a bit quicker today. But I still think they need to be playing forward more. I think they need to be playing less nonsense in their own penalty area. What I would say is when you watched, and I don't want to get into that discussion of Liam against him, because it's a waste of everybody's time and effort because Liam's gone. But the one point I want to make is last season, as much as it was seat your pants stuff at times, when the team last season played out from the back, whether it went into Seri and back and then out, you kind of felt there was a structure to it, there was a plan to it, and when it worked, it was brilliant. But there was a control. There was a control about what they were doing, and there was a method. You could understand it. You don't have to agree with it. You didn't have to enjoy it, but you could see what they were trying to do, and the players had clarity in what they were being asked to do. This is just messy. I just think it's messy. It's not. The players don't look comfortable with what they're being asked to do, and I just think that resonates throughout the team, and it comes into the performance. And yeah. But anyway, I digress. Everybody, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you getting in touch. I need to get going because it's a long way home and the weather is awful. Get in touch at the 1904 Club. We'll have a podcast for you on Monday, all being well. Plenty of reaction and stuff to come from here at Kenilworth Road over the next couple of days. And we'll see you at the MKM Stadium on Tuesday night. Thanks for watching. Take it steady and have a good weekend, everyone.